Hi, and welcome back to Vital, where I, your host, cover topics in wellness, things that aren't so on wellness, and many other riveting things. I'm very glad you decided to listen to me yet again, so let's get right into it. On today's episode, I really want to cover a few topics that will be referenced throughout many of my future episodes, and that is oxidative stress, free radicals, and inflammation. And for those of you that have spent any time in the wellness community or perhaps on the Goop website, I'm sure that you've heard these terms or are somewhat familiar with them. However, I really want to offer up a brief yet thorough explanation so that you have the necessary context. So before you get disappointed that I'm not throwing shade at anyone or anything today, this is a really important foundational health concept to understand, and I hope it helps to inform many of your future health decisions. So let's break these down one at a time. Oxidative stress is the general term for a condition that occurs when there's an imbalance between free radicals and antioxidants in the body. When there's oxidative stress in the body, it can lead to tissue damage, cellular dysfunction, and inflammation. And those things already don't sound great, but the noticeable impact to you, dear listener, are things like an accelerated aging process, chronic diseases, cancer, hormonal and fertility problems, and a plethora of other major health problems. In my humble professional opinion, excess oxidative stress is one of the biggest underlying root causes of pretty much all diseases alongside inflammation. So what on God's green earth are free radicals? They are basically unstable molecules that are highly reactive. Me when I don't get my sweet little treat. And free radicals are reactive because they have unpaired electrons. They're on the hunt for other electrons to pair with, and this can cause damage to cells, DNA, and proteins because they end up stealing electrons from these molecules. And this process of theft is called oxidation. I wonder if anyone has tried telling them swipe or no swiping. So free radicals can be generated two main ways, internally and externally. The first is through normal metabolic processes, like when energy is produced in the mitochondria. Say it with me, the powerhouse of the cell. And free radicals are a byproduct of this process. This is called an endogenous source because these free radicals are created internally, and it's usually a manageable amount for the body to handle on its own. Now, there is another normal metabolic process that can produce free radicals, and that is when immune cells create a type of free radical called a reactive oxygen species to fight off pathogens if it senses little invaders. This is part of a healthy inflammatory response and is mostly normal and okay. However, the body can often create too much inflammatory response, and those free radicals can damage perfectly healthy cells as well. So basically, sometimes the inflammatory response says, I no longer have a manager, I can't be managed. And inflammation and oxidative stress are like the catch-22 from hell. They can each cause the other and often feed off each other. The second primary way through which free radicals get made is from external factors like pollution, pesticides, cigarette smoke. I just heard the French collectively fall down. The nasty tap water in the city tanks, and ingredients that are prone to oxidation, which we will get to. And this is called an exogenous source because it comes from external factors. All right, so on to inflammation. Inflammation is not inherently bad. It's the body's natural protective mechanism for an infection or injury, and it's a way for the body to remove damaged cells and to repair tissue. And this is something called acute inflammation because it's short-lived, it's only there to protect the body, and then it stops, and the free radicals created are kept in check. However, a massively growing issue amongst our population, especially in America, is chronic inflammation, and that is when the inflammatory response doesn't stop and it continues to send out free radicals to fix an issue that might not even exist. And this is where the catch-22 comes into play because inflammation will create unnecessary free radicals, which causes oxidative stress because there's large excess of free radicals floating around, wreaking havoc in the body. And these free radicals then attack healthy cells, which triggers the inflammatory response further because it goes, oh my God, damage on all three. We got to run interference by releasing even more free radicals to try to clean up the damage. But it ends up being a never-ending cycle. And a good example of chronic inflammation in action is the development of type 2 diabetes and obesity, because they are essentially disturbances in the metabolic process on a cellular level and can seriously affect insulin resistance. So I've mentioned a few health effects, but let's look into the two main ways that oxidative stress causes damage to the body and some of the most common outcomes from each form. The first kind is called lipid peroxidation, and this is the type of oxidative stress that targets cell membranes because lipids are a component of the cell membrane. So because the structural integrity of the cell is now being attacked, this leads to cell dysfunction and death. and it affects the lipids in the blood vessels, so this type of oxidative stress will definitely lead to cardiovascular diseases. The other kind of oxidative stress is called protein oxidation, and it can modify the proteins by changing their structure and function and can even partially unravel proteins. This disrupts enzyme activity and signaling pathways and affects overall cellular function, and it plays a really big role in the aging process and conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. All right, so for anyone who just tuned out of all of that, let's review once more what oxidative stress has been convicted of in the court of Val. So it's responsible for cardiovascular diseases due to the oxidation of lipids in blood vessels. It can lead to neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, because oxidative stress damages neurons. It can also cause cancer because the DNA damage can lead to the development of tumors because the cells are being mutated. It can also be a big factor in chronic inflammation, which can make conditions like arthritis and asthma significantly worse. But really, pretty much any condition can be boiled down to oxidative stress and inflammation disturbing cellular function and metabolic processes. So how can this absolute mess be mitigated? I'm so glad you asked. I mentioned antioxidants earlier as being the counterbalance to free radicals. And an antioxidant is a molecule that can donate an electron to a free radical without becoming unstable itself. Like when you give your girlfriends advice about their situationship without having to be admitted to the psych ward yourself. Just me? Okay. So this electron donation essentially neutralizes the free radical and stops the train wreck reaction of molecular damage. Antioxidants actually also work by breaking down peroxides, and peroxides are a type of reactive oxygen species which all fall under the free radical umbrella. So peroxides can form during lipid peroxidation when fats in the body are exposed to free radicals. And they're very unstable and can actually end up becoming free radicals themselves during the decomposition process. So as a solution, the body produces a variety of antioxidant enzymes endogenously, which we learned earlier means internally, such as superoxide dismutase, catalase, and glutathione peroxidase. There are also a lot of dietary sources like vitamin C, vitamin E, and polyphenols, and I really cannot overstate the importance of consuming foods that are extremely high in antioxidants on a daily basis. So berries, citrus fruits, vegetables, basically the things that are associated with a healthy diet in general. But berries especially are particularly high in polyphenols. Citrus fruits contain vitamin C, and vitamin E can come from mangoes, kiwi, trout, salmon, and avocados. And actually, this podcast is propaganda material for the avocado industry. So if Big Avocado wants to sponsor me, you know where to find me. Vitamin E can also be very easily supplemented. However, be very careful because like 99% of the vitamin E supplements on the market contain vegetable and seed oils, which actually contribute further to oxidative stress, completely defeating the purpose of supplementation. And a lot of mainstream health information will say that seed oils like sunflower and safflower oil contain vitamin E, which is technically true. They do contain it, but they also oxidize in the body and lead to more issues. So I personally would not go near those with a 10-foot pole. So just to summarize, oxidative stress is the condition or state. Free radicals and reactive oxygen species are a method through which oxidative stress occurs, and inflammation is another way that oxidative stress occurs. Inflammation can create free radicals can create inflammation, and antioxidants can counteract free radicals by providing missing electrons. They're kind of like each other's other half. It's so romantic. And I know no one wants to hear this, but diet and limiting exposure to exogenous sources of free radicals really is the best way to prevent oxidative stress from forming. So eat your fruits and vegetables like an adult, exercise regularly, and try not to consume foods that are treated with pesticides or packaged goods that are prone to use oils that oxidize. And while antioxidant supplements are nice, they are not a replacement for an unhealthy lifestyle. In reality, antioxidants can only do so much. All right, so this long-winded explanation has been an interruption in your regularly scheduled programming. However, it is required listening for the next episode. I hope this has been informative. If you like the episode, please like, subscribe, and share it with all your friends, enemies, and coworkers. And I'll see you again in the next episode.